I see now the magic is ruined because I saw the countdown out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah,
and you don't get right now. I'm
you
just
got in your head. You got stage fright. You know?
I did. Maybe I'll just
years of doing this.
Maybe I'll just go piss in the middle of a live show. Who knows?
I mean, like Maimonides has this story of a lute player, right, who's like brought to perform before the king, perform a song he knows like 1,000 times, like the back of his hand, and he gets up there, and not only does he forget the song, he forgets how to play the lute. Like everything about it, like how to even hold it. And yeah, that's what's happening to us right now. You know,
I did that in a Tim Hortons once.
You did? Oh, so it was a Tim Hortons. So it was. I fucking told you.
Why were you trying to play the lute in a Tim Hortons?
We thought we'd have to sing for our dinner.
No. I went to Tim Hortons for the first time in Quebec. I tried to order a black coffee in French.
Oh yeah,
and I messed that up, and then I also forgot how to speak English.
I tell people that story. I tell people that story as Roz tried to order a black coffee in 2 languages and then successfully spoke neither of those languages.
Yeah, so
one of my great memories of you is just like me and my dad being like, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
You don't have to. You don't. Advice for first-time visitors to Quebec: just don't bother with speaking French. Just don't do it. They all speak English. They get offended if you speak French.
Yeah, and because your French is better than theirs.
That's for that. That's like their thing. It's like it's the equivalent of a white guy speaking African American vernacular English. Just don't do it.
I don't know that it is. I really don't know that it is.
But yeah, I do love the idea of Roz going in there and just being like, you know what I'm gonna do is speak exclusively African American vernacular English.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, I wonder what that might sound like. I guess we'll never know.
No.
I hope we never learn that.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
But shizzle.
Please.
Oh, no. All right. This is a bit of an unconventional episode. We're not going to stick to the normal format. We're doing what, I don't know, I'm just going to call a Will Airs Your Problem news brief.
Yeah, we've done Whoops All News before.
Yeah,
but
all news. In fact, let me hit you with the news. It's all news.
Hello, welcome to It's All News.
All the news
podcast, which is about news.
I said odd. I hate myself.
I'm Justin Rosniak. I'm the person who's talking right now. My pronouns are he and him. Okay, go.
I'm November Kelly. I'm the person who's talking now. My pronouns are she and her. WTYP Action News Team.
Yes.
Yay, Liam.
Yay, Liam. Yeah, we're gonna. Oh, that was so loud right in my fucking ears, dude. Are you taking allergy meds like I told you?
No.
Roz,
actually,
these are the oldest, most married couple. And the fact that, like, one of you getting married, if anything, only intensified your marriage to each other.
I don't understand why you do this.
Well, no, it's what I didn't do, which is
you
take
allergy. You have allergy meds. I will take you to the store if I have to, and I will give them to you like a baby bird.
Being friends with Liam is you receive a large amount of allergy medication and hard drives.
Yes,
and not that you know how to take it. That's fine. Hi, I'm Liam McAnderson. I keep forgetting that I changed my name. My pronouns are he and him.
Why did you change your name? I guess glass houses there, you know?
It's not legal yet, but...
well, I mean, glass houses.
It's highly illegal name change.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna change my name to Liam Rosniak, and then it's gonna get real weird.
Don't do that.
Don't tell me what to do.
It's my name. You can't have it.
We just all increment by one. So we get like share. Justin Kelly, Liam Rosniak, and November McAnderson, I guess.
Yeah, we all have to share.
You get all the syllables.
In the future of communism, we all have to share one last name, which is Rosniak.
Comrade Rosniak.
So, usually I like to back off from directly commenting on current events because, you're going to get stuff wrong. We'll probably get some stuff wrong in this one.
The blood's still wet. People aren't like receptive to you making jokes about it. Like,
we're going to do the best we can as stuff comes out. Reports may change. What this is, we're going to flash a big disclaimer here. This was recorded on April 3rd, 2024. Don't get mad at us.
This is the baseless speculation hour.
And so this is a disaster that, at least for Liam and myself, hit pretty close to home.
Yeah, we've been on this bridge. We took 695. I forget where we were going. We have definitely taken it.
Why didn't we go through the tunnel?
I don't know. Roz, we have taken so many trips together, they all blend together, man.
Right.
For all I know, we're still in Canada.
This is where the Quebec riff comes back in, you know? You just hear in the background, like, Quebecois.
This must be from when we got so drunk in Dundalk that we lost a week or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
You were in Baltimore in a fugue state.
Okay, I have been in Baltimore in a fugue state. Let me ask you this question, Roz. Do you remember any of spring of 2016? No, you don't.
No, not really.
Yeah, I told you.
Anyway, so the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, which spans the entrance of the Baltimore Harbor, got bonked.
Yeah, remind me what I just said about sensitivity. This boat 9/11 happened.
It's not a good situation. The whole bridge went into water. Most people were able to get off the bridge, but there was a construction crew on the bridge which was not in contact with the harbor master, and they were not alerted to evacuate. So they all went into water. Two of them were pulled out of the water alive. 6 are missing, presumed dead.
Yeah, it's really
two of those bodies. And I've seen things online that are just like, well, they were definitely illegal immigrants. To which I say, no, I'm not going to say blank yourself because I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's the dignity of human beings. You can do better than that.
Yeah, you understand how that's worse, right? That it's not
everyone has a right to leave the job site safely and intact.
Mm-hmm.
And put that on a shirt.
Yeah, and the fact that these were people whose lives were like already being devalued doesn't mean that their lives are worth less. Kind of the opposite, right? It means it's important to spend more time being like, it fucking sucks that these guys got like boat murdered.
So as it turns out, all people are entitled to dignity.
I don't love that I said boat murdered. Dwarf Fortress Let's Plays colonizing my brain, allowing me to like comment on a tragedy like years later.
You are fascinating.
So I'm neurodivergent, probably.
Yeah, so are the rest of us. Remember that live show where they told us we all had autism? I remember that.
Well, we will get into the communication failures here in a bit. But, I always like to start with some history and some context.
I thought this was going to be like Drake's Well for a second.
Yeah, no. So let's look at the Baltimore Harbor.
I remember this from season 2 of The Wire.
Oh, yeah. So it's the harbor in Baltimore. It's on the Patapsco River.
Water's
over here.
Gross.
Yeah, over here is the inner harbor, right? They used to have a lot of boats. It doesn't anymore. It's just like recreational boats. The rest of it, I said it was the outer harbor. It's not actually called that. It's just, the harbor, the port of Baltimore.
Okay, but that's an actual like seaport though. Like,
oh yeah, it's the 4th largest on the East Coast, I believe.
So all the auto traffic comes through, right?
They got a container terminal here. They got a terminal for auto imports here. There's a smaller one over here, I believe. There's piers for exporting coal over here and down here. Down here is a whole bunch of mostly bulk liquid exports, probably petroleum products.
So the stuff that's like killing the planet goes out, and then the Toyotas that are killing the planet come in.
Yes. Gotcha. Well, they do export and import of vehicles here. They send out a lot of John Deere tractors.
Huh.
Over here, you got the Domino Sugar Plant. They still get a lot of deliveries. I believe over here, these piers are for gypsum mostly. There's actually some old-fashioned break bulk up here. Over here, there's there's a couple Navy vessels as well. What else do we have here? Over here, we have the Middle Branch Community Rowing Club, where I did regattas in high school occasionally.
Just
Middle
a
Branch of the Patapsco.
Diverge into like an unrelated news item. Justin, as a former rower, did you see that our Oxford Cambridge boat race was derailed by massive amounts of human turds in the River Thames?
I heard about the boat race being. I thought it was just they couldn't go in the river. It wasn't that it was canceled.
No, they did it, and then everybody got sick. A bunch of them got sick beforehand, and then afterwards they all got sick.
You know, I used to row on the Anacostia River in Washington, D.C. The boathouse was above a confined sewer outflow. Like it was literally like at the dock. Behind the dock was where the combined sewer overflowed. And I fell in that river when it was raining directly into the poo, and I was fine. Nothing bad happened to me.
You just built different. Meanwhile,
yeah, apparently,
all of these like posh kids get like one splash of E. coli.
Yeah, exactly.
Shitting their guts out for like a week.
Fucking, you know,
I just love the idea of Ross swimming through like a river of turds and just like gritting his teeth like some sort of like army crawl. The special forces, but it's just Ross.
Yeah,
I believe it. You know.
This area, I remember rowing over here. It's very briny. It's just unpleasant smells everywhere. What else is here? The NS Savannah is moored here permanently.
That's the Constellation.
The nuclear merchant ship.
Future episode, I guess. We'll have to do a bonus episode on like nuclear ships.
People have been asking for it.
Down here, Sparrows Point, there used to be a big steel mill. Fort Carroll here, Robert E. Lee's other contribution to society.
I like all this. This is like the kind of like this isn't even Rust Belt. I was going to say the Rust Belt playset. You know?
Yeah,
it comes with a bunch of different activities.
You have
go out in Federal Hill and see your future wife black out, eat a bunch of pasta, wake up the next morning and ask why there's no more pasta.
There's a Coast Guard station down here on Curtis Creek. Some miscellaneous petroleum stuff over here, lots of barges. I'm not exactly certain what goes on down here. That's the extent of my knowledge of the port.
So a lot going on.
Recreational vessels up here.
Yeah, which is that like all of this stuff is behind, or almost all of this stuff is behind one bridge, and then some of it's behind 3 bridges. Which
no. There is one bridge, which is the Francis Scott Key Bridge down here.
Gotcha.
This is the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel here.
Oh,
this is the Fort Henry Tunnel here.
You know, it's almost as if it makes more sense to do a tunnel under a harbor rather than a bridge over it.
We'll get to that in a second, but yes. So, you know, this is a big port. Our big exports are, you know, right now it's cars, it's tractors, it's you know, stuff like that. It's sort of,
is there an area of Baltimore called Pigtown? If you look above the M&T Bank Stadium, below and to the left of the like big Baltimore, there's
right,
Pigtown.
Yeah, I've been there a lot. I didn't know it was called Pigtown. That's where the B&O Railroad Museum is there. B&O Railroad Museum, very, very good. Go there. Yeah, so, you know, this is a big port. It's the 4th largest on the East Coast. It's a relatively important one. It is, it gets some big container ships, but it also gets lots of other kinds of ships and always has. You know, the containers are not necessarily the main thing here, although they probably have a bigger dollar value than everything else other than the cars. You know, the containers are the big container port is still Port of New York and New Jersey.
Sure.
So anyway, you know, one of the things maybe where I want to push back on some media narratives here. Some of the biggest vessels coming in here are the bulkers for coal, right? Yeah. You know, there's been a lot of talk about how ships got a lot bigger very quickly over the recent few years. That's true of container ships. For bulk ships, these got really big in the 1970s. So this ship here is called Sealander 2, registered in Malta. It's 95,000 gross tons. It's 950 feet long-ish, 150-foot beam-ish. It's big. It's not notably bigger than a lot of the bulkers that were coming in the 1970s. You know, the Port of Baltimore has been seeing these really, really big ships for a really, really long time. One of the reasons why a lot of the early crossings were tunnels as opposed to bridges.
Because all of these like Panamax era sort of like bulk carriers.
Oh, this is Suezmax. The bulkers the bulkers got bigger than the Panamax standard really early on. Them and the oil tankers.
I guess that's kind of implied by the word bulk.
Yeah.
Which mood, honestly, but
yeah.
Same.
For the uninitiated, bulkers are designed to carry things like coal or iron ore or grain or any kind of
loose shit.
Loose stuff that you can just put in a big pile, right?
Mm-hmm. One might say simply a big container ship full of loose cigarettes.
Yeah, it's a container ship where the container is the ship rather than a bunch of
exactly.
Right.
Also, coal stored looks ugly as hell. Maybe we shouldn't be digging this stuff out of the ground.
Well, you got to make steel somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, we're well on our way to the.
Yeah.
We're well on our way to not doing that anymore. We don't do that in this country anymore. You know.
All right, so the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This is the product of induced demand, right? The Baltimore Harbor Tunnel opened in 1957, which is the tunnel that now carries Interstate 895 under the harbor from a neighborhood called Brooklyn.
Steel Valor. What the fuck?
Yeah. There's Baltimore, Brooklyn, and it goes to a big industrial area and then through
Baltimore
Greektown.
Just like renaming everything in Baltimore so that it's the same as New York, but prefaced by Baltimore. I love to go to Baltimore, Manhattan.
Greektown, brackets, Baltimore.
Stavros, what are you doing here?
Yeah. That's where he lives. Yeah. We're not doxing Stavros on here. Anyway. So
listen, I only know 2 people who live in Baltimore, and I can't make jokes about one of them, so it's gonna have to be Stavros.
So once all these cars started cramming themselves through the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, there was, clearly an imminent need for a outer harbor crossing, right?
Sure.
So, they put to tender this contract for the outer harbor tunnel in 1970. All the bids came back too high. So it was going to be a bridge.
Is a bridge cheaper?
Bridges generally are cheaper.
Huh.
This is read the Power Broker for a lot of discussion on this.
Yeah, I don't have like an intuitive sense of which is going to be more expensive,
So it depends a lot on like the geography. It depends a lot on the geology. It depends a lot on, frankly, who's building it and what era it was. Because there was there were some, especially the further back in time you go, the stronger the case for the tunnel was.
Sure.
This was going to be a big bridge. Funding was authorized in 1971. The Coast Guard sort of vacillated for a while on this idea because they were like, well, maybe having a bridge that could potentially block the harbor if it were destroyed would be a bad idea. Eventually, they acquiesced.
Yeah,
right?
I remember reading that the Coast Guard station had a betting pool for a while after it was built on when it was going to collapse, which some like 1970s Coast Guard veteran has just won big. You know?
I was about to say.
Congratulations on winning what I assume is like a taunting at this point as well.
Yeah, it starts out like a swear jar. Pretty soon it's the big like transparent pig from Squid Game, and a guy has just like won that.
Yeah. So they eventually approved the bridge at the very last second before the bond authorization was going to expire in 1972. Construction began. This was going to be the longest continuous truss span in the world, with a main span of 1,200 feet. That's, between the piers here, right? It opened for traffic.
Impressive.
Oh, yeah. It was a very big bridge for its type. I believe if it were still standing now, it'd be only the 3rd longest in the world. So, it's a 4-lane bridge. It was built with 2-lane approach roads because they didn't have money to build the whole highway out. This is a bridge with no shoulder, no walkways, very much of a certain era where the focus is just about get the lanes in.
Get the cars out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
I have personally always thought this was a very handsome bridge, though. It was, definitely a familiar landmark. Sort of as you're coming out of the harbor tunnel, you can see it.
Yeah,
It's striking, and
Yes.
it gives Baltimore a bit of skyline. I don't know Baltimore well, but I can understand people being like attached to it.
Yeah. One thing I also want to note, because even mainstream big news outlets are doing this. This is called the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It is not called the Baltimore Bridge.
Yeah.
Right? There's many bridges in Baltimore. They got the Hanover Street Bridge, the Curtis Creek Bridge, the Carrollton Viaduct, the Howard Street Bridge. There's several bridges near Penn Station. There's a whole freeway interchange on a bridge on the middle branch of the Patapsco. It's not the Baltimore Bridge. It is the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
It's named after the guy who wrote your national anthem? Question
Yes.
mark?
Correct.
About seeing Fort McHenry being bombarded.
It's still there. So
yes.
Congratulations on the tie.
I do appreciate that you have the only national anthem to mention a Congreve rocket. That's pretty cool, Other than that, no strong feelings. I think it's funny that they put the word free on too high a note for most people to reach.
It's impossible to sing. It's not a very good national anthem. We should replace it with America the Beautiful, which was written by a lesbian socialist school teacher.
Hell yeah. I mean, this is the thing that binds the US and the UK together is that our national anthems suck. We have a much better one, ready to go at any time, and we choose not to use it out of inertia. Ours is like a dirge,
You watch. They'll eventually replace it with God Bless the USA.
Yeah. Welcome to State 51. Sorry.
Yeah.
Replace it with Party in the USA.
Oh, well,
This can't be the same USA Miley was partying in.
Would they really still say Death to America if they had heard Party in the USA?
Honestly, they'd probably say it more. I fucking hate that song. There's a good remix of Party. I'm not done yet. There's a good remix of Party in the USA combined with Biggie's Party and Bullshit. It's called Party and Bullshit in the USA, and it does kind of slap. Now I'm done.
I can fill up sometimes some more bullshit. I can be like, I want to hear a Boy Genius cover of Party in the USA. Thanks.
So, a continuous truss bridge.
Yes.
Right? They look very similar to cantilever bridges. Some of them even have the pointy, almost suspension bridge outline. The idea of the continuous truss is exactly that. It's one truss section, which is spread out over 4 support piers here.
Ooh,
the two in the middle are the major ones. All of this is one big structure, and it's all reliant on every other part.
Yeah, as I saw one engineer put it on Twitter, the collapse of this bridge, sort of like if you and all your friends had to hold hands in a line, and then one of you gets hit by a truck going 60 miles an hour.
Yes.
You're probably going to let go of each other.
Yeah. So anyway, it needs, especially the 2 in the middle support piers here. These are the most important. Maybe you would only have a partial collapse if one of these outer piers went down, but the whole thing is reliant on all of itself to stay up.
It's got 2 glowing weak points.
Yeah. As opposed to down here, this is the Commodore Barry Bridge. This is a cantilever bridge, right? Which is made out of 2 independent parts and one middle part that's dependent on both sides. So, if there were a collapse where one of these piers were taken out, let's say this one here, this section from about here to probably there, that's reliant entirely on this pier. That goes down. Then there's a segment about here to there, which is suspended between the 2 cantilevers. That one goes down. But over here, that would be fine. It would just be balanced precariously on one spot.
Sort of the designated survivor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's essentially the 2 long cantilever spans. They support this middle segment, which is supported just at the base here. Somewhere up here, there are some pretty hefty looking structural members, which are actually entirely aesthetic at both ends. That's always
people.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. It's like, oh, shouldn't there be a beam there? Nah, you don't need one. But we put one anyway to reassure people.
I like a bit of like psychological engineering. I like the thing to be built with the appearance of like solidness.
It's like the Firth of Forth Bridge, which is built specifically to look strong as well as be strong.
Yeah, it's projecting things.
Yeah, but these cantilevers, they can be a bit longer than a continuous truss can, just because you're cheating a bit by having that middle span there. But that's the basic differences there. This thing is entirely reliant on every part of it to stand, and this one you can have a partial collapse, which will still be very bad.
Yeah, but this one, the whole thing stands or falls.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So, let's talk about the boats.
I've heard of these.
Yes, sort of the concept of the Panama Canal. We all know it exists for a long time.
At time of recording, there's some problems there. Turns out it needs water to operate the locks, and it turns out they're not getting enough of it because of climate change. So, watch this space, I guess.
Probably should have thrown some pipes in there so you can reuse the lock water for drinking water. Hindsight is 2020.
Tasty. You could really taste the bilge.
It comes out of the lake anyway.
Yeah, but I don't want. We could. Did you see the fake email we got
goes
from
through
Evian?
Water treatment plant.
God damn it! Just let us have our bunker oil jokes and be done with it.
I clearly wanted to say bunker oil. The fact that I restrained myself to get to like bilge water is,
bunker oil.
I'm improving. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we should at least talk briefly about container ships, how they got so big. They got so big because they expanded the Panama Canal in 2016. Suddenly, all these old Panamax container ships, which are the largest ships that could fit through the old locks, those are out of fashion. The new Neo-Panamax ships are in because you could move more containers with the same crew. This higher value merchandise that's in containers, it prefers to travel on the most direct route. So suddenly, if you're like, I can fit more containers through the Panama Canal on a bigger ship, I'm going to instantly move to bigger ships, the biggest ships possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
On the other hand, again, the Port of Baltimore saw a lot of bulk ships, and since coal doesn't go bad, those got really big pretty early on.
And stayed big.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing with oil tankers. In fact, oil tankers have actually started getting smaller again.
Yeah, we finally hit peak oil tanker.
Yeah. But one of these modern Neo-Panamax ships, Neo-Panamax being the standard for the new locks as opposed to the old locks, was the MV Dolly.
When you say was, the ship's fine, right?
The ship is mostly fine, yeah.
You just drag it back out, paint it, maybe change the name.
You're probably going to have to do some pretty heavy repairs, actually. But
put a new bow on it. It's fine.
So MV Dolly is named for
Salvador?
Yes.
Really?
Seriously?
Yes, it has a sister ship named the Cezanne.
I mean, I guess you got to name them something.
Yeah.
Yes. It's better than like fucking Empire Loadmaster 27 or whatever.
The SS Turbo Hitler. Yeah.
Yes.
I think most ship names are better than the SS Turbo Hitler, especially with the SS part.
I don't ship with Hamburg lines for that reason. So anyway, this the ship 984 feet long. It has 158-foot beam.
Same.
49-foot draft.
Same.
95,000 gross tons.
Same.
Can carry just under 10,000 20-foot equivalent units.
Oh, I can't do that.
I can do that.
I can carry probably one, I guess.
This is
carry a shipping container.
Not quite the size of an aircraft carrier, but pretty close, right? And it's about just under half the size of the largest container ships afloat today, at least in terms of gross tonnage.
International shipping is so cool. And by
I
mean like strange.
Oh, those boats got real big, especially if you're doing the post Panamax Pacific routes. Those ships are just huge.
Yeah, like the largest thing the like human endeavor has ever seen, and it is there to like bring you Toyotas.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, no, that's on a Ro-Ro ship, not a container ship.
No, we don't fuck
to bring
with,
you fucking like I don't know Lego bricks.
We
or,
don't fuck with Ro-Ro ships on this
semiconductors. What else goes in containers?
Everything
transport fever.
No, everything in transport fever doesn't go in containers. It just happens to in the game.
It's kind of fucked up that there's no like reason. Yeah. Anyway.
No. What goes in containers? It's finished consumer goods.
Okay. All of my treats,
among other
all
things.
of my crap.
Yeah, exactly. It's full of vacuum cleaners.
Mm-hmm.
Or
vacuum cleaners, keyboards.
All the shit you ordered on AliExpress is in there.
Sex dildos.
Oh, good. My John's Bow NAS case.
Yeah.
Commemorative like model CFL helmets. I don't know.
Yeah, every time you see a full container ship, you should realize that everything on there is going to be thrown out in like 2 years.
Not my John's Bow N1 Mini ITX NAS chassis, ITX computer case 5+1 disc-based NAS mini aluminum with steel plate case, built-in 14cm fan, only SFX power byte, support H70 millimeter CPU cooler.
Okay, not everything on the container ship is finished consumer goods, but it's sort of it's sort of the stuff that goes in containers is stuff that is usually a little bit higher value merchandise. It's not like bulk products or anything like that. Usually, it depends.
Trafficked humans.
There is, for instance,
Wayfair. What are you doing here?
There's one container ship that goes between the Caribbean and Wilmington, Delaware, which carries exclusively bananas.
And Roz, every time we see that ship, Roz has to sing the "Yes, we have no bananas today"
Yes,
song.
we have no. That's what they say when they finish unloading. They say, "Yes, we have no bananas. We have no bananas today."
Baltimore PD's missing surveillance van is on one of these.
That's probably on there. Lots of stuff goes on these, but the things that sort of has in common is it's stuff that makes sense to transport in containers, which is not like I don't know, sand, for instance.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just transporting the empty containers somewhere because a lot of times there's an imbalance between like Asia and the West Coast. You have to.
They had that container shortage, didn't they?
Yeah. It's like, well, there's plenty of containers. They're just not where they're needed. No one wants to send a ship full of empty containers, but eventually you got to do it.
Who owns the containers, by the way? Is the answer as simple as the like 5 shipping companies printed on the side?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes there's like weird leasing arrangements. There's like all kinds of stuff. It gets real weird
with rail cars. Yeah. That's a weird one.
But so like Maersk or whatever owns like 9 billion metal boxes.
Yes.
Cool.
And so, the ownership of the ship is a little more complicated. This ship was delivered in 2015. It was flagged in Singapore. It was owned by a company called Grace Ocean Private, but it was operated by Marine Synergy Group, and it was chartered by Maersk.
Gotcha. Least complicated sort of maritime arrangement.
That's relatively straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, shit gets weird. I used to work on letters of credit in a previous life for this exact thing. And it got real fucking weird in a real fucking hurry.
I bet.
Yeah, and as for like, the crew was all Indian. Still is all Indian because they're still stuck on the ship. We'll get to that in a bit.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I guess it's the reverse of the Beirut port explosion where you're like trapped on your own ship after the disaster rather than before.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Singapore, not exactly a flag of convenience. Those guys are a little strict about this stuff.
Sure.
This is not like a super fly by night operation, even though it's it is a complex ownership or structure. This is not like Bob's Shipping Company that exists to own one ship.
It's commercial, so they're going to try and get the like edges and cut the corners where they can, but like it's not cowboys.
Yeah, it's at some point you own something this big, you have to be at least a little above board.
Well, literally.
So to speak, right.
So make a long story short, because there's a lot of people who've covered the exact trajectory of the ship and everything down to the minute. She's underway outside to leave the port of Baltimore early in the morning, March 26, 2024, bound for Colombo in Sri Lanka.
Bunch of Sri Lankan guys waiting on their John Deere tractors, TVs, and sex asses.
There's one guy there in a dirty Mac, and he's like, just one more thing. So around 1:30 in the morning, things went wrong.
Yeah.
I'll do sort of a rough timeline here. From what I know at this point, obviously this is all secondhand from them. It's not like I'm down on the ground reporting.
Yeah, you're like bothering the NTSB guys,
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I got a pod to put out.
I'm pretty sure some of them listen. Like they must do.
Yeah,
there's gotta be. Yeah,
we have listened. The Empire is everywhere.
The one thing you should know about us, we have people everywhere.
So the ship left the port. She was assisted by tugs into the main channel. Once they get her into the main channel, the tugs leave. She accelerates up to a whopping 8 knots.
Well, what's that normal person?
Like 9 miles an hour.
Okay.
Maybe 10.
Gotcha.
I don't know what that is in kilometers.
Usain Bolt could outrun this ship, but I couldn't.
Oh,
you could outwalk the ship probably.
9.20624 miles per hour.
I don't think I walk at 10 miles an hour.
Oh, well, I guess this is going to be like a
6-minute mile, man.
Is that a I guess okay. I could outrun
short
it
legs.
briefly.
I'm not going to
okay. Yeah. All right. Well, if we stacked all three of us on top of each other, we might have a bit with a shout.
Right. All three of us stacked on top of each other on a Segway could outrun this boat.
Yeah.
Right.
I just did a fun run last weekend. I was forced to do it, and my pace was not exceptional.
Doesn't sound like a fun run if you're forced to do it. That feels like a mandatory run.
Yeah, it was more of a death march. But
you could out bicycle this ship easily.
Okay, well, yeah.
Well, listen, that's not hard because the bicycle is, as you keep telling me, the most efficient means of transportation ever invented. So
yes,
you use it with your legs.
It's like up there with like fucking some of the like nuclear fucking bypass rockets or whatever.
Roz, we should get you a recumbent bike.
A bicycle is as energy efficient, almost as energy efficient as a small bird, which is a highly energy efficient form of transportation.
And but how do it as much higher?
How do you get on top of it, though? Right, exactly. Well, outside of nature's laws, man.
So they're about 90.
Me on a skateboard with a flock of starlings all on leashes.
Yeah. So they're about 90 seconds out from the bridge when the ship loses power for reasons which have yet to be determined. The ship is under control of a pilot. Right, and the pilot
rookie mistake. That's the guy who flies a plane.
All right, yeah, fine.
Oh, salting snail.
Yeah.
I really felt like I was about to get fired in that moment.
Yeah, so here's the thing: we can't fire you.
Yeah. All right. So the pilot is employed by the port as someone who's an expert in navigating vessels through the various narrow channels that come in and out of the port. In this case, out down the Patapsco and into the Chesapeake Bay. Mm-hmm. And the pilot, okay, we lose power. The radio's dead. Everything's dead. He's no control of the ship. We don't know everything about what exactly he was in control of and what he wasn't, but we do know he immediately whips out his cell phone and calls the port and says, shut down the bridge.
The correct decision taken instantly.
Instantly, yes.
And unfortunately, I hate doing this. I'm mad at myself for even saying it, but the cops whose job it was to get people to not go on the bridge
if you ever need a cop for anything, it is to close a road, right? Like it's the same reason.
Doing it.
Some of the places, I think the Northeast, they end up having to deputize some of their firefighters as cops because New York state law doesn't let a firefighter have the power to close a road, only a cop. So some of the firefighters are theoretical legal cops for that purpose only.
Pennsylvania has fire police,
fire
basically.
Police, yeah.
We have fire police.
America's so cool.
We're a dumbass country, bud.
Thin blue and red line at the same time. Thin purple line.
No, I like purple. That's my favorite color. Pick another one.
The harbor master calls the police, the Maryland state troopers, block both ends of the bridge. If you go on Twitter, you can see some pictures of people trying to drive around the blockade because they're insane.
No, I got to get home.
Yeah, I got to get home. Yeah.
At 1 in the morning, where are you going? Like
exactly.
The bar. Where else are you going at 1 a.m.? You're going to the bar.
There was a 8-man construction crew working on the bridge who were not in contact with the harbor master in any way.
Do we know why not?
They really should have been. Also,
they probably should have been. Yeah,
it's so long that you can't see them like blockading it at the ends.
Right.
It's like you're on the top in the middle, so it's like a down.
There was not a lot of time to react here. One of the officers actually called for backup so he could drive onto the bridge and tell the guys to get off.
Probably give that guy some kind of a medal or something.
But he was still blocking the bridge, so if he moved, people would drive onto the bridge.
Sophie's choice,
yeah.
Well, quite literally the trolley problem, right? Like a bunch of people who are trying to drive past you to their deaths, or 8 people.
It's also far from obvious how imminent this disaster is at this point.
Because no one can see shit, right?
Yeah, no one can see anything.
All the lights on the ship are out. Like,
yes,
it's it doesn't have like any.
It's also far from obvious that the ship is going to immediately turn and hit the bridge.
I've seen video of this, and when the lights go out, it is crazy how like invisible it is. Even against it's backlit against a city. It's like the ideal situation for it being visible, and it's still just like it disappears.
Right.
I believe they do before they hit the bridge. They drop I want to say this is the port anchor here, which I don't know if that affected the trajectory of the vessel at all, or
I think what happened was they lost power one time. They tried to do they got it back, tried to turn, and then lost power again with the rudder over, which turns like they can't get it back. So the kind of small turn turns into a very big turn and just like diverts it off course anyway. So even if it hadn't been drifting, it just like it turns into it.
Yeah, exactly. So the Dolly bonks into the South Pier, and there's just no contest here. The bridge immediately, like the pier goes, the bridge itself rips itself apart, collapses in multiple ways from multiple locations, just instantly.
I heard that this happened because of woke and because of DEI.
Oh, I have that later in the presentation.
Okay,
Don't worry.
Okay, good.
So now, owing to the quick thinking of the pilot, the tugs that were previously assisting the ship were alerted immediately. They came to the scene. They managed to pull 2 of the construction workers out of the water alive. But the rest, again, they went in the drink and didn't come back up.
It's really cold water.
Yeah, 47 degrees, I think I read. I could be wrong on that.
As a normal person, but
plus also, the impact.
Yeah, SS Estonia cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
that's what I was trying to explain to someone at work. I was like, you have 10 minutes when you hit the water, if that, and that assumes like a best case scenario.
Yeah, that assumes that you go in and like are injured in like a survivable way, and you
can swim basically.
And you dodge the like bridge landing on top of you.
Yeah,
the bridge landing on top of you is a big factor here. You also might have been sitting in your car.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff can go wrong here.
Jesus fucking Christ, man.
Yeah.
This shit sucks.
I mean, drowning in your car is like, that's one of the fucking nightmares.
Nope,
like we talked.
Yeah,
I think we talked about this with the Tesla billionaire lady. Like,
no thanks. Not a pleasant way to go.
So anyway, this ship, it also came in at an exceptionally bad angle, right? There were a few systems in place here that may have stopped this ship, but to some extent, this was very, very unlucky.
Yeah.
And I'll go through some of those. Here's some navigational charts. Well, one navigational chart. How does this happen? Is this an unavoidable freak accident, or are there some lessons to be learned here, right? So we have to talk about the Baltimore Harbor Channel. This is about 60 feet deep. fills the whole width of the main span of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which is about 1,200 feet. The bridge itself was built on a budget, still nevertheless testing the limits of continuous truss bridge technology. So any inch they could take, they used for the navigational channel, right?
But you want to give yourself like as much space as you can because it's a busy port, right? Like,
yes, it's supposed to be designed that two ships could pass each other going under the bridge, I believe, but that very rarely happens. Especially since the container ships got bigger, rather than seeing, multiple container ships a day. Now it's like the container ship comes 4 times a week or something. Sure. Now, even then, only the channel itself is deep, 60 feet deep. Everything around it, you can see these numbers are soundings, 42, 22 feet deep, 19 feet deep, so on and so forth. Ideally, a ship which is bound for one of the piers is going to run aground well before it reaches the pier.
It just bonks into like, I guess the electricity wires up here north of the bridge, which you're
gonna run aground well before you get up to here.
Oh, you just bonk off to the side. You perfectly like ever given Baltimore Harbor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, running aground is a great way to stop a big ship, but we can see that MV Dolly just managed to thread the needle in such a way so as it hit the pier before it ran aground.
I do like of the ways to stop a huge ship running aground is one of the like premier ways of doing it.
Yes. There are other defense measures possible, namely dolphins.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about the dolphins because
the Sunshine Skyway. Yeah,
the thing that we all said initially in the sort of like first moments of baseless speculation is, why did it not have more of these things? How did they fuck this up this badly?
And I do think actually more substantial dolphins probably would have helped here. I've gone back and forth on this because some people say, well, there was nothing you could do to stop the ship. And other people said, well, the dolphin system should have been more substantial. There's some interesting stuff here, though. So the Francis Scott Key Bridge was actually one of the first bridges to be put up with big concrete dolphins, right?
It's a ship bollard.
Exactly.
The ship goes off course, it whacks into the big concrete pier instead of something that's holding up something.
Exactly. So, and these sorts of things sort of entered the public consciousness after the Sunshine Skyway Bridge was knocked down by a much smaller ship than this. We have an episode on that. Go watch that one. A colleague dug up this article from the St. Petersburg Times on May 4th, 1978, which favorably compared the Francis Scott Key Bridge fender system to the Sunshine Skyway. This is actually from before the Sunshine Skyway came down. Designer said his cells, his dolphins, which cost $250,000 each, would stop a 200,000 ton ship doing 6 knots.
Yeah, it just bonks into it.
Well, it either slices into the ship and lock it there, or it will divert it. Right? It's unclear here whether he's talking about 200,000 gross tons or 200,000 deadweight tons, 200,000 tons weight. I don't know what he's talking about when he says 200,000 tons. Ships aren't measured that way, but
probably not an encouraging sign. Although I do like the quote at the beginning where he says, well, should we put armor plating over houses to protect them from airplanes? Which we kind of sort of like after plain 9/11, original classic 9/11, like they did build a lot of buildings to try and be more like 9/11 resistant. So
yeah. Well, the World Trade Center towers did have some engineering decisions which made them a little less plane resistant than other buildings. That's a different episode.
Yeah, the 9/11 episode.
Yeah,
where you found out that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
Yes,
which we've done 3 episodes on.
We should really do another one.
So anyway, this is why, generally speaking, when you talk about these systems, you don't talk about individually dolphins or individually anything. This the whole thing. What you have is a bridge fender system, right? Which is designed to stop ships from hitting the piers. No one technique is going to stop a huge ship dead in its tracks. Combination of works will bleed off momentum, redirect the ship, otherwise disable it, prevent it from reaching the bridge piers. The specific purpose of the Dolphin is it takes a hard hit, right, and it starts to tear into the hull of the vessel, which in turn bleeds off the momentum, causes the ship to slow down quickly, right? And you combine that with, while it's hitting the Dolphin, it's also running aground generally. And in the case of the Sunshine Skyway, the new bridge, they actually built an artificial island around both the main bridge piers here. So that is also absorbing the impact before the ship reaches the actual main structure, right? Then at this point, through a combination of these techniques, also the fact that the captain is trying to stop the ship as well, everyone involved here works together to stop catastrophe from happening. Instead, you just have a very expensive accident.
Yeah, that maybe like blocks the channel until you move the ship.
Yeah, exactly. And it causes a lot of damage to the ship, too. Ideally, this doesn't happen at all, and the ship just goes through, right?
I have a futuristic solution to this. I'm willing to sell to any port in the world for huge amounts of money. You just have a sort of very high-powered laser either side of the navigation channel, just slices the ship apart the second it goes over it. Easy.
That's going to kill some people. I don't like that.
Yeah, well, so is this maybe, like, let me have my bridge lightsaber.
Yeah. So, this is, again, the Francis Scott Key Bridge had one of the earlier fender systems installed. It's relatively small. You can see it in the next image. There is a dolphin here. There's one over here.
Hey, sorry, I'll
There's
be right
one
back.
over here.
Just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like really like widely spaced, and it came in at a really like unfortunate angle.
Yes. So it completely missed the dolphin.
It seems weird to just have 4 of them is the other thing. Like, especially given the Sunshine Skyway had like, I don't know, a half dozen for each pier, it seemed like.
This is after we learned a lot.
Yeah.
This is just a different situation entirely because, they're much larger, but they were also built in reaction to, oh crap, this bridge collapsed.
The thing is, if I maybe I'm assuming too much sort of budget for public works here, but if I had a bridge and I was in charge of that bridge, I would want to keep up with like bridge news. And I feel like bridge fall down because boat hit it is kind of, for me as like operator of a bridge over a harbor, that's something I would want to be like up to date on.
Well, ideally, the fender system on the Francis Scott Key Bridge would have been improved after the Sunshine Skyway went down.
Yeah, that's sort
that
of what
did
I'm
not
asking.
happen. Yeah, it was sort of like, well, we have a fender system. It's not very good, but it exists. That's way better than most other bridges at that time period. So it's kind of like it was, I guess, not at the time considered urgent to upgrade the fender system because they had one and most bridges didn't.
Sure. It's like I have an airbag.
Yeah,
granted,
exactly.
It's in like the rear passenger offside door, but like I have one.
Yeah, so these very small, very old fashioned fenders, the Dolphins, they're not enough to stop it. The shipping channel goes right up to the piers, so there's not enough ground to stop it. And the angle of attack here is very unfortunate. So it was able to just whack into the pier. The bridge came down.
I think it gave people a lot of like misconceptions the way it looks visually as well, because like if you compare it to the power lines, the fenders around that look to the like I guess untrained observer kind of substantial, and you're like, well, wait a second.
Substantial. Nah, that thing is gonna. If the ship hit this, well, number one, it would have run aground first. If the ship hit this, it would go through it like it wasn't even there.
Oh, sure. People look at that and they go, well, like, okay, well, clearly the reason why this didn't have those is because of woke or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an old bridge. I mean, that was never upgraded.
I did have the thought, right? You remember, like, a couple of weeks ago, Biden was in, I want to say Michigan, where he was doing the, like, ooh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes thing. But the other thing he was doing was, like, being photographed, being like, we're going to invest in your shitty bridges, Michigan.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, stranger things have happened. Maybe this wins him the election. Like, given that he's like infrastructure guy, or trying to make himself be seen as such.
He's had a great track record on infrastructure so far. I don't think any of those any of the Build Back Better funds have even been awarded yet.
Yeah, but he's putting up the the IRA stuff with the signs, you know.
That's a good point. Yeah. But so anyway, yeah, this is an unfortunate angle. We have no idea how well these Dolphins would have performed because the ship didn't hit them. Even though they're pretty small, I still think you would have probably had a situation where you were able to bleed off a lot of momentum combined with the ship running aground. It might have stopped a lot more quickly. But again, we don't know. And there's a lot of people who are still at this point debating in like both on Twitter, but also in like the news, like would a dolphin have stopped this? The answer is just sort of there was not the combination of defenses here to stop this ship. And that was just sort of due to the age of it. And also, I think the real thing here is, all right, how do you engineer to avoid the scenario happening in the first place?
Sure.
If you look at other bridges and tunnels which go over major shipping lanes. So, for instance, here is the Bayonne Bridge in New Jersey.
Yeah, I've been miserable on this bridge.
Yeah. The main shipping lane to the port of New York and New Jersey goes right underneath it, right? There's a very easy way that they are able to avoid having a situation where a ship whacks into one of the piers, which is the piers are on land, which ships cannot operate very well on.
Yeah, one of the most effective ways of stopping a ship, land.
Yes, is land. Yes,
I don't like it.
Yeah, so it's that's one of the ways is you just span the full width of the channel, and then you're never going to have to worry about a ship, bonking into your bridge. Another option we can see here, the Commodore Barry Bridge over the Delaware River, which ships for the port of Philadelphia go in there. Number one, it's a wider span or a longer span. This is 1,500 feet. Number two, the ships that go through here are smaller. I don't think we can take the huge post-Panamax or neo-Panamax ships in Philly. We got a smaller container terminal. But it's a wider shipping lane. It's a wider channel. It's a longer bridge. There's more room for error. And also they've built up these gravel islands around the piers. I want to say these were put in 2008 or so.
I really like the way they look. This is the level of analysis I bring to this podcast. Is I think they look cool.
But with a larger margin of error, the risk of collision is much lower. Another option, of course, very popular one, is to build a tunnel. This is the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, which it's an immersed tube tunnel. It's one of those ones where, they dug a trench on the bottom of the harbor, and then they lowered big steel tubes in there, and then they covered it up, and then they built a road through it. Theoretically, a ship could hit this, but it's very unlikely.
Yeah, could get hit by a submarine, I guess.
Yeah.
You would be embarrassed as a submarine commander, I feel.
Yeah.
This is true. Yeah. I mean, you oh my God, I wrecked my submarine on the seabed 50 feet under the port of Baltimore. The fucking, what's it called? The conning tower or whatever on the submarine.
Yeah. Well, a sail.
It would still be fucking above the water. Just embarrassing at that point. So one great way to prevent ship collisions is to not build a bridge at all. Is the main thing.
Just go around.
Lots of our major heavy duty ports like Rotterdam or Shanghai or Port of Long Beach, they just don't have crossings, or those crossings are all in tunnels.
Wait, doesn't Long Beach have a massive bridge though? I remember from GTA
Los
5.
Angeles. Los Angeles has the big bridge. and the two ports are adjacent to each other. Long Beach does not.
Okay.
Yeah. But you always got to consider the option of removing the safety hazard entirely before spending a lot of money mitigating it. I also believe the Port of Los Angeles, that bridge also has the two piers on land.
Ah, smart.
Yeah. That's thinking with the brain head. So I think there were some design deficiencies here which contributed to the accident here. Especially since they were originally considering building a tunnel here as opposed to building a bridge. I mean, they sort of, they were asking for it, and the event took 52 years, but they got it.
I mean, in some ways, it's a testament that it took that long, right? That the fucking Coast Guard betting pool on it has probably aged out.
Yeah, that guy's probably 92 years old now.
I mean, one very happy 92-year-old Coast Guard guy.
Yeah. So, we've gone through, we did the search and rescue phase already. Again, the two guys they pulled out of the water, the two guys who lived, believe they pulled out two more bodies, right?
I think so, yeah.
And there's still four people under the water. We're sort of in the cleanup and salvage stage right now. There is one fortunate thing here, which is there's a lot of marine salvage industry based on in the Chesapeake Bay. This crane is called Chesapeake 1000. It's on the scene right now. It's real big. I took the train through Baltimore on Friday, and you could see this thing just looming on the horizon. Real big.
We've deployed the sort of riverine equivalent of the Bagger 288.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some stuff. There's some of these big marine cranes, they make the Bagger 288 look like a Tonka truck.
One of those giant Caterpillar dump trucks. I love those.
So Chesapeake 1000 is on the site right now. They're trying to move the wreckage out of the way. This is probably going to take a month or two to clean up, to get the port moving again. At the time of recording, there's a few small channels that have been opened up to give access for smaller vessels, but the main channel is still blocked. You can't.
Syossis.
Yeah, exactly. You're all the big ships are still stuck in there for a long time. A lot of this work is very nasty. It's very difficult because you have divers in there doing underwater welding or underwater cutting, I guess. The visibility is low, because the harbor is full of silt and nast and blech, right?
Nast.
And there's when you're cutting metal like this, which has been subject to, these weird conditions like the bridge ripping itself apart, there's still internal stresses in the metal, which may be released by cutting it.
Yeah, you just get perfectly flicked by a giant I-beam or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's one of these, you have to be very careful. You have to know exactly what is going to happen before. You can't just go in and cut the beams willy-nilly, because you don't know exactly what the reaction is going to be unless you have people, heavily studying this thing who can say, okay, it's fine if you cut that bit or whatever.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'd find yourself airborne, having previously been scuba diving.
Yeah, exactly. You've been sort of you have a Looney Tunes situation.
Yeah. I would hate to have a Looney Tunes situation.
Yes. That's it's not as funny in real life.
No. I hate to be strapped to a rocket that just says Acme on it. And I also paid too much for groceries.
Yeah. Now, one of the things whenever one of these major disasters happens, especially if it's in the United States or if it's in, Western Europe, if it's somewhere that a certain type of person considers to be the normal part of the world, you get conspiracies.
I love these.
Yeah. I just want to say this bridge behaved exactly as you would expect almost any long span bridge to behave when you remove a bridge pier. You're not going to just remove a bridge pier and still have that half of the bridge hanging in the air. It's going to fall down.
Yeah, it's held up by itself. We go back to the fourth suspension bridge, kind of like guys holding up other guys on like planks of wood with ropes or whatever thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's so one of the conspiracies is that this is because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whatever it is, DEI.
Shut up.
Right?
Yeah, they changed from woke to DEI.
To DEI, and this was instigated by the DEI mayor of Baltimore.
I don't.
Why the hell not, man? Let's all just live in pretend land with a bunch of.
I want to point out
the mayor.
They said he was DEI, presumably because he's a black guy.
Yeah.
Right. But the city is 62% black. Yeah. So I figured if they had a
democracy mayor,
if they had a DEI mayor, he would be a white guy, right?
That's a good point.
The token white guy mayor.
Sound logic.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, this is just sort of. I mean, people just label anything bad that goes wrong as DEI now. You know, which is like, okay, a plane fell out of the sky. Well, that's because of DEI, or like what else has happened recently?
Yeah, it's very weird to be doing an engineering disasters podcast at a time when the most cynical fascists in the world are trying to weaponize engineering disasters as a thing to make you racist against black people.
Yeah. There's an earthquake in Taiwan. That's DEI.
That's you know, there was because we can't say woke anymore because
there was an eclipse. That's DEI.
People actually believe that.
I stubbed my toe. That's DEI.
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of fascist whining.
Yeah, and it's like it's a pretty obvious, like, intentional campaign here. And it started with the fucking airlines, and now it's this. It's going to keep going until they find their new thing, you know?
Someone's going to say, well, you know, the whole crew of the ship was Indian. Number one, ships doing international trade are crewed by people from other countries.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like... this is not some like sudden change in the demographics of the like merchant shipping industry. Believe me, the merchant shipping industry, which is like 70% Filipino, 20% Indian, and then 10% all others.
Yeah. So these are all competent, you know.
Yeah.
Crew. There's no
been doing it all the time for like decades.
Yeah. I mean, the question of why did the ship lose power is still an open one, but it does not seem to have been anything particularly related to the fact that certain people had a certain skin color.
No, what it was, clearly there was a Russian guy with the Havana syndrome gun aimed at the ship's engines.
Yeah, this is the other idea is that, what's his face? Andrew Tate promoted this. It was a cyber attack, right?
No, it wasn't.
Joking.
No, he's very dumb.
Yeah. So the idea is, okay, this was a sort of cyber attack, right?
No, it wasn't.
This loses power.
Wildly optimistic idea of how networked all of these systems are.
I was about to say.
It's a hamster running on a wheel.
Yeah.
I was going to say, at some point that has to go to like a marine diesel engine.
The marine diesel, I mean, whatever computer it's connected up to is running Windows XP at best.
Yes.
You know, it's I don't know that you could do a cyber attack that causes a very precise series of events where the ship loses power, and then while it's lost power, precisely navigates between the Dolphin directly into the bridge pier.
Yeah, that's like a kind of like pool trick shot with your cyber attack, right?
Especially considering one of the things that lost power, as far as we can tell, is the rudder, which steers the ship.
Like, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Another conspiracy is that Obama predicted it in a Netflix film.
This is by far the craziest, so I'm willing to hear it out.
Yeah. This has something to do with the cyber attack. I didn't write many notes here just because it's ridiculous. I guess there was some kind of Netflix film that Obama was the producer of about cyber attacks.
This is Obama coming out on your like Netflix, like for you being like, let me be clear, I'm going to collapse the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Yeah, exactly. It's so it's I don't know. Maybe Obama did it. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. I'm not going to pass judgment.
I think it's cool how like a lot of people have become like pathologically paranoid about everything. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Another conspiracy theory is, as always, it was a controlled demolition. Because I think there's some people who don't believe any structure has fallen down accidentally ever.
Yeah, it's all part of the controlled demolition racket, going back to Crassus.
Yes.
Yeah, doing like an Illuminati wanted shit, except it's like some secret brotherhood of like controlled demolition operators.
Yeah.
I think the thing is this if the previous one overestimated how networked a marine diesel engine was, this one overestimates how well every Baltimore area demolition guy can keep a secret.
Yeah,
not so good. They'd be drunk at a bar in Dundalk the next day.
Yeah,
you'd be talking about it in the parking lot of Cranbrook Liquors. I know about fucking Baltimore. Leave me alone.
Most controlled demolition guys are pretty excited to tell you about their job.
Just a guy in a fucking Ravens jersey drinking a natty mo talking to you about how he demoed the bridge.
It's always like, that the keeping a secret is very difficult when you're doing really cool stuff. Like clandestinely blowing up a bridge, or doing 9/11 or whatever.
Whenever the CIA does anything cool, they can barely keep it secret. They manage to get like a couple of decades out of it, and then all of a sudden you know about like Project Azorian because it's on their webpage.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just a webpage.
That shit we did.
A printout that just says we did it and we're not sorry. Here's a photo of Alan Dulles for you to masturbate to.
Yeah, I log on to like CIA.gov and my printer just uncommanded prints of like full color Alan Dulles.
So it does not
pretty funny for April 1st, honestly.
It does not seem as though this was any kind of conspiracy or intentional thing as of yet.
Bridge falls down, shit happens.
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, this is shit happens. I mean, there are some people saying, well, we shouldn't say that this is attributable to any one kind of political ideology, or this is attributable to a certain conspiracy or whatever. I do think this was an avertible accident. I do think that there are reasons why this happened and lessons to be learned. I don't like the idea of just saying this was just a freak accident and there's nothing we can do. Right. But it was not like I don't know if this would have been fixed by having communism.
It's one of those things where you can be like, it's not enough to be like, this is a freak accident, because that lets people off the hook for like bad decisions and bad systems, right. But you can still say this was bad luck, even by the standards of like
extremely bad luck.
I mean, obviously the real truth is that as they were operating the marine diesel engine, a single Hamas fighter popped the hatch from a tunnel leading into the engine room and like sabotaged things down there.
By God, is that Hamas's red triangle?
Oh, you never want to see a red triangle over the bridge pier.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. You want to get out of there.
Yeah, the boat didn't even hit it. It was one guy in like a ski mask and a green headband, just like putting an RPG warhead on there and like running away.
Aha! You'll never catch me. You can catch me at the at a bar in Fen Hill. I'll be at others.
Do you think the Hamas guys go to bars in Fen Hill that often?
Fen Hill? Yeah. I mean, I would. I like Fen Hill.
Got a Hamas overseas operations. Hamas International.
It's like when Archer had to change the name of the agency from ISIS.
My favorite bit of Archer when they had to do that was them rolling out the old ISIS logo.
Before ISIS brackets real was a thing, I very nearly had like an ISIS t-shirt from Archer, and that would have been an awkward moment,
It's like the laundry in somewhere in England that was just called Swastika Laundry, and then they had explained underneath it was ours first. Hitler be damned. Should have kept it. Should have did the big dick move.
Yeah, why should I change? He's the one that sucks.
Yeah, he's the one that sucks. So anyway, let's talk about putting the damn thing back up.
Oh, they're gonna build some fucking bullshit, aren't they?
It's probably gonna be a cable stayed bridge. It's gonna be kind of boring. I'm not a huge fan of how these things look. I know a lot of people are. But I'm kind of like, I like a big truss,
So does Lamar Jackson, connecting us once again to Baltimore.
I thought I did, but after 49 days of her as prime minister, I'm not so sure.
Aw, she deserves to suffer.
I just pictured this, right? At the end of his second term, a 9,000-year-old Biden inaugurating the like American Renaissance Freedom Prosperity Bridge or whatever.
Can you step away from the lathe for me, please?
And then immediately dropping dead and like crumbling into dust.
Fingers crossed, baby.
Yeah. So the thing is, however you slice it, this is a long span bridge. Those things take a long time to engineer and a long time to build. There's going to be a lot of debate as to exactly how to do this. You know, the old bridge was functionally obsolete, right? It was not built to interstate standards, certainly not modern ones. Mm-hmm. You need new approaches. You need new,
like Santiago Calatrava this shit.
No, you don't.
Old Biden opens the bridge, trips and falls off the span.
It slides down because it's made of glass for some reason.
Dunked in the outer harbor, just instantly dies of being in that harbor water.
What if it revives him?
There's going to be environmental questions. There's going to be
like a Lazarus bath from Batman. Yeah.
There's going to be historic preservation questions because you got the two forts right there. There's existing infrastructure nearby, you know, the high tension power lines. You're going to have the question of should you build a bridge or should you build a tunnel? There's going to be annoying people like me who are going to ask for public transit lanes on there, you know, so on and so forth, right?
Sure.
And it's not going to be a quick job. It's going to be measured in years, not months, right? Biden announced the federal government would pay for it, which I think is jumping the gun. They should maybe try and get some of that insurance money first.
Daddy government's just gonna like take over it. It's critical like national infrastructure. What do you want? Like,
we'll get to that. But luckily, the world's smartest and richest man has chimed in. Yeah. So if you reuse the truss steel that fell, says Elon Musk, it could be functioning in 3 to 6 months. The repair should be put to commercial bid with a massive incentive for early and safe completion.
Hey, whoever edits this episode, can you put in that gif of the Rock saying, "Shut up, bitch"?
Shut up, bitch!
I like the massive incentive for early and safe completion. Two famously like congruent design philosophies.
Yeah, have you tried to build anything in this country? Good fucking luck, asshole.
Okay, you can do things early and safe. It's just that
nobody.
In this case, it might not be worth it. Anyway, so sent 9:31 p.m. on March 29th, 2024 from Earth. Interesting. I thought Elon was going to Mars.
They all do that now.
Any day now.
Yeah. So I was really bored this weekend and found out that people actually believe that reusing the steel to build a new structure quickly is possible because Elon typed it out on Twitter. So let's humor them. What if we reuse the steel?
Oh, material science hour.
All right. We've had this diagram up before, but
I remember.
I don't know. Maybe we get some new viewers.
You taught me what Young's modulus does, and I will never forgive you for it.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty bad whenever I have to host this thing.
This is a stress strain curve. This is representative. We don't have the units marked or anything because it's, you know, when you have the units, it makes it more irritating because it's harder to point out the different parts that are going on because then everything gets crammed over on one side.
Take a college class.
Yeah, exactly. Go learn this from a nerd. Yeah, well, I guess we're
jocks.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I rode in high school. I'm jock coded.
Are rowers jocks? I don't know.
Rowers are definitely jocks.
They're nerdy jocks though. All the rowers.
Okay, yeah. Firmly on the jock side of the spectrum, though.
Yeah.
Jock with nerd characteristics.
Oh my god. Tell us about material science, you fucking dweeb.
Yeah. Dweeb exists perpendicularly to nerd and jock.
I'm going to come over there, beat you to death with your own shoes.
So, yeah, it doesn't have units, this chart. We don't need them at the moment. Stress is measured in pressure. It's like PSI or pascals or whatever the hell people want to use. Strain is unitless down here. Strain is the ratio of the length of a piece of material at rest to its length when stressed, right? So if I have a beam that's a meter long with a strain of 1.01, that beam under that amount of strain is 1 meter and 1 centimeter long, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. The way that this is tested, the way these charts are made, essentially we have what's called a coupon, right? Which is a piece of metal that looks like this, just a flat piece of metal. And then you have some things that grip on one side, some things that grip on the other side. And this big ugly machine
should grip on my metal.
Yeah. This big ugly machine pulls one side down at a constant rate.
That feels good as hell.
No, it doesn't. We'll get to that.
Yes, it does. Shut up.
And that's how we increase the strain and measure the stress, and not the other way around. So anyway, as we increase the strain, we go through a period called elastic deformation, right? That's this part here. The strain increases linearly as the stress increases, or rather vice versa. The stress increases as the strain increases. There's a linear relationship. And the slope of this line is the Young's modulus, right? Which is a nice, useful data point that can tell us a whole lot about how and where to use materials. Mm-hmm. But at some point, we hit the yield strength, right? And the yield strength is where stuff starts to break down. All of a sudden, where the amount of stress in the material reduces, even though strain is increasing. And this is because we've gone from elastic deformation, where when the stress is relieved, it goes back down to the original size. Now, as we increase the strain, if you release the stress, it goes back in the same line, but to a point where it is bigger than before. That is plastic deformation, right? And this is something that's bad. That means you've overstressed the material, generally speaking. There's some times when it's desirable. We'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. Now, we increase the strain from there. We start messing with the crystalline structure of the material, right? The actual, like, the how the metal is arranged in a molecular sense. This causes something called strain hardening, which is essentially we're making it more rigid, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we did the
shit we like, and it peaks at ultimate strength.
Ultimate strength, yes.
Ultimate strength.
Now, sometimes you this is desirable. You want to do this like at the factory or something when you're making the iron members.
Yeah, I then the iron foundry stretching things until they reach ultimate strength.
That's called cold forming or cold working. In that case, you would ship the thing out after it has been de-stressed, and the piece would have sort of a it would return to a different size than when it started out with, but you would know that and you could use the material appropriately. If it happens after you install it, this is very bad. You don't want things to be cold formed when you don't want them to be.
I hate when, you already know the joke. Don't worry about it.
Eventually,
on the 26th of March at 9:31 p.m., a large amount of structural steel was strain hardened in a second kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get from strain hardening, we reach the ultimate strength. We go to necking, right? And necking is when this thing has been pulled apart so far that the cross section at the middle starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually we get to the point it just breaks in half.
As you do.
Yeah. Yes.
Fracture.
Yeah, that's definitely the point where you don't want to be, is where it fractures. So this is how, and this is simplified compared to the real world where, we do this with a machine on something which is effectively, the strain is one dimensional. Right. When you're in a situation where the bridge has collapsed, all this stuff is happening in 3 dimensions. And that becomes a lot more complicated. It requires ugly and annoying math like tensors and differential equations, multivariate calculus, finite element analysis, all this crap. It's much, much more complicated. This is just, this is the simplified version.
Thank God. I never have to learn the complified version.
Exactly.
Complicated.
The complexified way, yes.
We're doing so good.
Complexificated version.
And complexificated, yes. It makes the brain hurt.
I'm gonna beat you to death with your own shoes.
The important thing here is that the steel has gone past the yield point here, the yield strength. And if it's for reasons other than intentional cold forming, for the sake of structural purposes, this steel is now trash. You should not and cannot reuse that.
It's unsafe now because you don't know where on this sort of, even on the simplified version, where it is on this.
Yes.
Right.
Other than it is beyond the boundaries of where you want it to be.
And you can sort of see here, there's a lot of members which have clearly gone through plastic deformation. All this stuff is bent and busted. And it's twisted. All this stuff has happened. Some stuff is clearly fractured, right?
Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff been dumped in the harbor, which is probably not good for it.
That's also not good for it. But some of it, okay, you can see this wide flange section here. That one looks maybe okay. Maybe we can reuse it, right? Now, when you think about that, you also have to consider the Key Bridge stood for 52 years and thus had 52 years of load cycling on it.
Right.
Trucks, cars,
millions and millions of trucks.
Men on grotesquely heavy bicycles.
No, there was no walkway.
Shut up.
Yeah. These members may have also lost some cross-sectional area due to rust because it was being sprayed with brine constantly. The steel in general is just old. It's just old and busted, right? You can sort of correct this by way of annealing the members, right? So, okay, hypothetically, we remove all the steel that's okay, and then we bring it to an enormous oven, and we heat treat it, we anneal it, and it restores the original crystalline structure, right? Then you graft some plates on there where there was rust, and boom, you got a brand new bridge from the old bridge, right? This is what Elon stands actually believe.
You have one proportion of a new bridge from the old bridge.
Yeah, maybe. And I mean, this is the thing is, if we go and salvage all the steel, which is okay to be reused, you're not going to wind up with a lot of material. I would venture to say that in your insane quest to reuse the steel, after you spent 20 months extensively testing all the salvage materials to ensure they're usable and then annealing them for reuse, you're going to have thrown out about 99% of them.
Hey, you can have like one beam.
Yeah, you have one beam. Then you have the problem that this was a functionally obsolete continuous truss bridge. It does not meet any modern standards. We don't build continuous trusses really anymore. The new span is probably going to be cable stayed. It's probably going to be made of reinforced concrete piers and concrete box girders, right? So, if you got all these members annealed and you had them, you'd have just a big pile of wide flange beams and hollow structural sections when what you need is rebar and post-tensioning rods, right? The material is going to be useless.
Just put like one beam that you've saved at huge cost. Just like leave it sticking up,
Yeah, and then you can say, "Look, we
check out this beam.
We reused
it. We reused it. Shut up now."
Yeah.
It's the Bridge of Theseus.
Yeah,
that's funny.
And I guess the other thing is, okay, well, why not recycle it more conventionally, which is what they're going to do. All this stuff is going to get recycled.
Sure.
You melt it down into new material, but it's not like they're not going to reuse the same steel, right? Because mild steel is fungible. You melt down the old steel and you get the new steel from a new location. You don't, it's like if I don't know, I went to the bank and I deposited a $20 bill. If I want to get that $20 bill out, I don't get the same $20 bill, and I can't ask for the same $20 bill.
Yeah, and it's stupid to expect them to because steel doesn't have feelings.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, if you were like really serious and gung ho about getting a bridge built really quickly, I mean, you could probably get the new material delivered before the old steel even hit the scrapyard. So it's kind of like reusing the steel. The steel will be reused for something. It just won't be the same bridge.
Yeah, it's going to, I don't know, shipping containers or something.
Shipping containers,
Mersk, you bastards,
razor blades.
We are all, pawns
Mersk.
under the thumb of Big Mersk. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Elon's other big brilliant idea was offering incentives for rapid completion, which is going to be standard in any government contract of this nature.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
So, yeah, thanks for your 2 cents, Elon. We've taken it into consideration.
We've
built a rejection letter that just says "Go fuck yourself."
We've built the new bridge out of Cybertruck skin.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
One thing I will say is, okay, if this is a big if, you really wanted to get a crossing functioning here really quickly, and you really needed to.
Pontoon bridge.
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
This is how you would do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could do this, but it would be stupid.
I do not care.
No more harbor traffic. Give it to the Army Corps of Engineers. Be like,
it just slides back and forth like a Curacao. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So this is a Bailey Bridge, or a series of Bailey bridges, which are on pontoons. Bailey bridges were developed in World War II as this very simple steel bridge. It could be assembled entirely with hand tools and without the aid of a crane. The one we're looking at here is on pontoons, obviously. Bailey bridges are used for temporary structures pretty much everywhere. They're really cheap. They go together really quick. Some of them are even in use as basically permanent spans. They can be long, they can be short, they can be tall, they can be wide or narrow. They work really good for a lot of applications, right?
It's one of those things that you invented in like World War II that just turned out to be like, we have solved this problem, like as good as it needs to be
solved,
on Earth, right? Like it's done.
Yeah, there's like I was researching this apparently there's a lot of companies that have tried to come up with something better than a Bailey Bridge, and they all like require cranes or some bullshit. They just don't bother. We solved the problem.
This is the thing. Like, one guy in an office just like solved a problem for good. Just to be like, thing is like, this can be assembled by like 20 guys. They don't need to be able to like read. Like
yes,
yeah.
You can ship it in flat pack.
It's such a like American moment. I think about this. I think about the like USS We Built This Yesterday. I think about like bulldozing old planes with like minor faults off of the runways into the jungle because a new one was coming in quicker than you could fix it. Like 1940s American logistics genuinely still astounds me. So yeah,
Bailey Bridge is British.
Oh, fuck, even better. Okay, so this was invented by like a dude in a shed in 1942.
Yes.
It was just like, hey, I'm just going to tick this box, and be like, it's done. Bridge complete.
So if you're like, we really, really need this bridge completed real quick.
HMS We Built This Yesterday.
It's like, I think plausible, you could build a Bailey pontoon bridge across the harbor. And you could just say, okay, this metal section we can float out to let ships go through and then float it back in. That would be possible. The real question, though, is why?
It'd be too cool.
Cool
things aren't allowed to happen anymore.
Now, here's Baltimore. Here's the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Francis Scott Key Bridge is on the Baltimore Beltway. The Baltimore Beltway, of course, goes all the way around Baltimore. So that's an alternate route. There's a harbor tunnel. There's a Fort McHenry tunnel. The main purpose from sort of a national context for the Francis Scott Key Bridge was to allow hazardous materials trucks to bypass the harbor tunnels. Which they can still do by going through the Baltimore northern suburbs. It just takes a little longer.
The tunnels?
What?
Are they not allowed through the tunnels?
Nah, you can't put hazmat through the tunnels.
No, we can't.
Because again, it would be too cool. It would be like that one Sylvester Stallone movie.
Yeah, we remember the
Baltimore has had some bad experiences with hazmat and tunnels.
Yeah.
We'll do that episode at some point.
Please, yeah.
So that's pretty much standard on interstate highways, though. No hazmat in the tunnels. You know, and in Pennsylvania on the Turnpike, they actually make the hazmat trucks exit, and then you go up a long, winding road up and down the mountain, and then they rejoin.
Nice.
Pennsylvania is so fucking cool.
But the thing is, other than the hazmats being essential, and sort of this is more important in a local or regional context than a national one. It's was not a super heavily used crossing. If you live here in Dundalk and you work in Brooklyn, it's going to be annoying for a long time, but there's a lot of alternative routes. I don't think we're about to have like mid-Atlantic traffic chaos because of this. I think they can afford to spend some time and rebuild this bridge right.
You are more likely to like see a hazmat truck, but that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. The people in the northern suburbs are all assholes anyway, so I hope they get blown up. Yeah, it's if I fucking love Baltimore City, hate Baltimore County.
Yeah. Yep.
Take a strong position here on this.
No, he's right. He's right to say it.
Oh, I believe it.
And the other thing is, all right, the port is still shut down. It probably will be for 2 months. What happens now? You know, and the statistic is something like $15 million of lost economic activity a day. Governor Wes Moore called it a, quote, global crisis, unquote. There's lots of hemming and hawing. For most of us, all we might notice is that the car dealership inventory is going to be a little thin for a few months.
No Toyotas.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And some people are going to have delays on their tractor deliveries overseas. You know, but this is not a situation like the railroad strike where, you know, the grocery stores would have been empty in 2 weeks. This is kind of, we can compensate for this, right?
So it's a global crisis, but in a kind of like manageable way.
The global annoyance.
I guess you can't get up there after the fucking like big landmark fell down and killed like 6 people and be like, this is annoying.
This is actually annoying. Like, right. Yeah, this is annoying.
we can tank this one.
Yeah,
Governor says,
right, we
you
can,
know.
Yeah, we can probably afford to take a little bit of time to do this right. You know, our other East Coast ports are able to take up the slack. There's like lots of generally excess capacity, at least to absorb what needs to be absorbed at this point. You know, the railroads have started running extra trains. A lot of these, I guess maybe one facility that's getting slammed right now. This is in Norfolk. There's Lambert's Point, which is, I guess, the only East Coast coal terminal right now. But again, there's enough capacity to absorb a lot of these shipments without like really, really serious delay.
American moment.
Yeah, and if you're hoping for like chaos and pandemonium that upends the global order, you're gonna be disappointed.
I mean, listen, that's kind of already just happened in slow motion anyway. So like, just fucking wait, be chill.
Can you just be normal?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's another interesting question. Are there any other bridges that have similar vulnerabilities? I can think of 2. One of which is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, notably different from the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. This is downstream from the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This has about a 1,600-foot main span.
If it's downstream of it, like one pilot has the opportunity to do the funniest possible thing.
Yeah, exactly. You could cause a very severe blockage there. All those ships that go under Francis Scott Key Bridge also go under the main span of this guy. There's a little more wiggle room here. Again, there's 400 feet longer. I'm not sure the depth of the channel here, whether ships can make it to either of the piers. You might be able to bonk this. I am not sure.
Do not try.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this thing is already terrifying to drive over. Don't make it more terrifying.
Not bad, yeah.
It's about 180 feet. and the road deck is 3 lanes.
It's real weird. It's not. It's not fun.
No shoulder.
Nope.
And one of those lanes is reversible.
Yep.
What?
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you guys not have that?
No. I thought it was bad when we introduced like smart motorways which don't have a shoulder.
No. It's okay. Imagine you're on a 3-lane bridge, speed limit 60 miles an hour. There's a Jersey barrier and then just the air, and the other 2 lanes of traffic are coming the other way at 60 miles an hour, and there's no separator between them.
Nope.
That's Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
I would worry a lot about that.
It's not fun.
The more I learn to drive, the more scared I get, rather than
Yeah.
the less, which I think is probably the responsible way of doing it.
But yeah, so this is I don't know. This is a candidate for replacement soon. I don't think they're going to replace it. I believe they're just going to build an additional span. You know, this is another one of those functionally obsolete bridge, which I think could wind up sustaining a bonk in the future.
Mm.
And then the other one, which I think is a little bit worrying, the Walt Whitman,
Yep.
Huh.
which
They had to close it last week to get the USS New Jersey under that bitch.
this is true.
You,
Yeah.
barely
you could
cleared.
bonk one pier of it, or I guess the middle.
Well, here's the thing about the one pier over here. The other pier's on land, but this pier is right at the end of the container dock.
Or so if you fuck up your like parallel park a bit, then
Yeah, that could be an issue. You may want to put some armoring around this, you know. Other than that, I don't know of any other bridges offhand that might be vulnerable to those same problems, but I'm not being paid $1 million to do a study on that.
Yeah.
So
Probably a lot internationally. I doubt this is only an American problem, you know?
yeah, well, especially like the newer container harbors, they just do not have spans over them at all. It's all tunneled. I mean, even like Hamburg, which is way inland, there's no bridges over that channel. So, you know, this is a by and large a solved problem, except for certain ports, which seem to all be in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic ports.
Yeah, Port Classic. Yeah.
I don't know. I assume Britain is also lagging behind and is probably vulnerable to something like this, just because generally assume that we are.
No, there's nothing between the ocean and what's it, Felixstown, whatever it is.
Felixstowe.
Felixstowe. Yeah, there's you leave the container port and you're out in the ocean instantly. There's no bridge, no tunnel, no nothing.
Yeah, benefits of being an island, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, what have we learned?
If you're building a bridge over a major shipping channel, make it pretty big, because you don't want tight clearances in there. You want a lot of room for error so you don't get bonked.
If the Coast Guard guys start keeping a betting pool, rethink your course of action.
It
might take them 50 years, but they will be proven right.
And construction crews working on bridges should be in contact with the harbor master.
Yes.
Just
give them an extra walkie-talkie, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Give them a walkie-talkie, give them a telephone, give them something.
I do wonder how, like, in this case, just again with the, like, bad luck, whether there would have been time, you know? I wouldn't want to be in the middle of a bridge span and be told, like, okay, start sprinting. Doesn't matter which direction.
Everyone would have piled onto a pickup truck and drove off.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, well, I forgot the existence of pickup trucks, so I think it's probably a good indication that I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah. So that was, there's your problem Newsbrief, which was not that brief.
No. Still stretched that out to an hour and 45, baby.
Yeah.
Consider yourself informed.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to the regular. No, okay, we're done.
I do have a plug before we finish. If you listened this far, you probably already know. We'll put a link in the description as well. We have a merch store. You can buy shirts from us. All the stuff that we said about fashion, about fast fashion, about Rana Plaza. We are also mercy to these currents of like international commerce. And so now you can buy shirts from us. We try and make them as like ethically as we could. You can buy them. They're fun. I will continue to update the t-shirt store when we have a joke that is funny enough to put onto a t-shirt, and then you can buy it and you can wear it on your body.
Guaranteed to be as ethical as reasonably possible.
Oh,
yeah. It's as ethical as we take a look at it.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.